morning, everybody. Today is the last day of our this season of presentations. We started it on 11th and today 15th. This is the morning session, wherein on this topic, the setting of the 20th century literature, this group of students are going to make presentations. Let us quickly have an overview of the topics on which they are going to make presentations. Let me share a screen. You have an overview of the topics. So first we will have Insiyafatema making presentation on Surrealism as a revolutionary movement of 20th century, followed by Mansi's presentation on Absurdism. After that, Nirali will make presentation on comparative analysis of modernism and postmodernism in literature. Payal will make presentation on Victorianism versus modernism. Pooja's presentation on the use of non-linear narrative in the theatre of the absurd, followed by Rajeshvariba's various interpretations of the play, The Birthday Party. Riddhi's presentation on comparative study of absurdity in Waiting for Godot and The Birthday Party. Rinkal's on representation of India in the 20th century European literature with reference to Siddhartha. Trushali's on fantasy and religion in 20th century literature. And the last one for the morning session will be by Upasana on the function of art in modernism. And it is good to see that today we don't have to make any comment for the title. So you have made a proper title at least on the 5th day. And this you will continue in semester 3 and semester 4 or whenever you draft your titles for assignments or any other seminar presentations and other things. A quick overview of our system of dealing with this presentations. You all are given a task in Google Classroom, wherein you submit your works in this Google Classroom. All the presentations are submitted in this Google Classroom. And then through this submissions, you make your presentations here through StreamYard. We have a system of teachers evaluation here in Google Classroom through rubric, and we have various parameters on your subject knowledge, organization of your ideas, how you answer questions and answers, elocution, the art of clear speaking, mechanics of writing, grammatical errors on the slides, non-verbal, your eye contact, your body language. And then for the research aspect, we are looking at the citations, the originality of your writing, and whatever you have referred to, the source, how you are documenting it as per MLS style, documentation is properly done or not. So on these parameters, teachers evaluation happens. Here are your submissions which you play and present through this. At the end of the day, we have this rubric for the oral presentation by students. So you yourself evaluate your own presentation also, and also the peer evaluation is done. And so far we have this kinds of data. This way, in the first 4 papers, you all have evaluated, and this way, randomly, we can see that your performance has been evaluated on the Likert scale of 1 to 5 by your classmates. And this also is openly available to everybody. So when you submit your responses, you get a link to see that, and you can preserve this as a screenshot also to see that how you are evaluated by your group, your peers, your classmates in this. So there's 3 levels of assessment we are using here. Teachers in Google Classroom through rubric, which demands for several improvements and suggestions are given. And then how the classmates and you are evaluating yourself. So today, let us start with the first presentation. Insia, you can start with the first presentation of the day.
Good morning to all of you. On the last day of our presentation of semester 2, I am going to present about Surrealism as a revolutionary movement of 20th century. This is my personal information table of contents. So first we start with what is Surrealism. Surrealism was an artistic and literary movement of early 20th century which was inspired by previous Dada movement and founded by French writer André Breton. He wrote his seminal Surrealist manifesto in 1924. Surrealism developed out of the prior Dada movement, which existed as an anti art movement in the initially produced artwork that defied reason. Here, quote by Henry Breton. Surrealism is based on the belief in the omnipotence of dream in the undirected play of thought. Origin of the movement. Horrors of the war left a deep impression on society, with artists attempting to convey the confusion and anxiety felt within the artwork they were creating. Surrealism became known as a predominantly visual art movement in 1924. Apollinaire was a French avant-garde poet who had coined the word surrealist in his play, which was performed in 1917. However, it was Henri Breton who really defined surrealism as an artistic movement in his 1924 Surrealist Manifesto. So we talk about famous surrealists. Uh, One is Pablo Picasso. He was a Spanish artist and known as both a Cubist and Surrealist. Picasso is considered to be one of the most influential artists of the 20th century. From 1925, Picasso started experimenting with the style of Surrealism, with his artwork frequently characterized by dreamy representation of figures with haphazard facial features and deformed bodies. He tries different paintings and artistic movement in his art. So we can't consider him only as a surrealist. He is a surrealist also and cubist also. And his most well-known surrealist paintings are the sculptor Women with Flower and Grunetia. Max Ernst, he was a German artist, rose from the Dada movement to become one of the earliest and most ardent surrealists. He experimented with automatic drawing, collage, cut-ups, frottage, and other techniques to achieve unexpected juxtapositions and visual puns. His 1921 painting, Celebs, it was his famous painting, places a headless woman with a beast that is a part machine, part elephant. The title of the painting is from a German nursery rhyme. Frida Kahlo and Rene Marguerite. It's a famous painting, The Wounded Deer, and this iconic painting depicts Frida Kahlo as a wounded deer punctured by multiple arrows. She painted the painting after an unsuccessful spinal surgery in New York in 1946. By presenting this self portrait of herself as a hunted half stage, half human, she shares her suffering with the viewer, her choice to represent herself as a stage a male deer. Rene Marguerite, most famous surrealist, was a Belgian artist. He achieved a great critical acclaim for his idiosyncratic approach to surrealism. The treachery of image, Gologonda, and the Son of Man, these are famous surrealist painting by him. So these artists are trying to express their view with this art, and how they use technique. It's a very brilliant way. Surrealism in literature. Surrealism was not just limited to the visual art, it became influential in literary circles. Surrealist magazine, which was La Revolution, Surrealist, Les Surrealism, you service de la Revolution. It's a French language, and it's published in French. The surrealists in cinema used new techniques and approaches to free the art of cinema from traditional storytelling. Surrealism sculptures introduced the element of three-dimensionality and touched to the idea of bringing the unconscious to life. So these are example of surrealism painting. Uh, these are based on Spanish Civil War, and how these artists use this movement and this technique to express their view on Spanish Civil War, and they support Republican Party and people of Spain in this war. So first painting by Salvador Dali. In this painting, a grotesque body tears itself apart in an act of self mutilation that serves as a metaphor for a nation divided against itself. So Spain is divided in two group. One is for Republican and one is for nationalist. So he tried to explore in this painting this theme, how Spain is divided in two groups. And another one is by Pablo Picasso Grunicia. Picasso was asked by the Spanish Republican government in exile to create a picture for the Spanish pavilion at the Paris International Exhibition. This was by in response of Republican Party, and it when Nazi Germany attacked on a Spanish village, Grunicia, and so many innocent people die in this war, and he tried to explore this in this painting. Another one is by John Miro, Seated Women in 1939. The expressionistic seated women can be seen as a final manifestation of John Miro's penurious savage works characterized by violence of excusation and imagery. So these are the example of surrealist painting and surrealist artists, and how they try to explore their contemporary political and social issue by their art, and they support no, people, citizens of a country, and they try to criticize the political party or power who ruled any country. And when I asked ChatGPT what is surrealism, how this art used to describe war and politics. So it's a relatable answer by ChatGPT. And surrealism in politics and war is used as a means of critiquing and subverting dominant narratives and power structures. And surrealist artists often created works that reflected the chaos and trauma of war. Uh, so surrealists try to explore World War and Civil War, and in their painting and their arts. These are my work citation.
Insia, according to you, how did Surrealism influence and shape 20th century literature?
Surrealism is a very famous art of 20th century, and it uh, influence and shape on 20th century. Uh, with this art, artists try to convey message to the society, and try to shape their society, and they try to explore contemporary issue with this art.
Insia, how has surrealism influenced contemporary art and literature?
Surrealism is also famous in this time. Many artists use surrealistic themes and technique in their art, and it's challengeable for a traditional form of painting. And with this painting, they try to convey deeper message of contemporary social issues in their art. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Mansi Gujadiya. Today I will present absurdism in literature. This is my personal information. Mm, Uh, this is points to discuss in my presentation. Introduction. The absurdism term coined and first theorized by BBC radio drama critic Martin Eastling in 1960. The theater of the absurd is a literary and theatrical term used to describe a disparate group of avant-garde plays by a number of mostly European or American avant-garde playwrights and writers associated with this movement like Samuel Beckett, Arnold Pinter, Edward Albee, Eugene Ionesco, and Jane Gannett. Meaning of absurdism. According to Merriam-Webster dictionary, defines the term as a theater seeks to represent the absurdity of a human existence in a meaningless universe by bizarre or fantastic meanings. According to Albert Camus, absurdity is a confrontation in opposition, a conflict, or a divorce between two ideas. Absurdity is a boredom, meaninglessness, futility, and confusion. It also highlights how different characters, event, and places have been portrayed in a novel to despite the absurdity of human existence. Here is some characteristic of absurdism. Absurd theater is a prominent offspring of the Second World War. The genre explored the futility and existentialist nature of human life, the breaking down of all logic and communication in a godless universe. Absurdist work will not necessarily have a traditional plot structure. Here is some example of absurd play, like the trial by Franz Kafka, Invisible Man by written by Ralph Ellison, Waiting for Godot, written by Samuel Beckett. Stranger, written by Albert Camus. Slagon House 5, written by Kurt Vonnegut. The birthday party, written by Arnold Pinter. Here I describe the Waiting for Godot as a absurd play. Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, written in French, 1948, is a play dedicated to the absurd. This work based on a belief that the universe is irritational and meaningless, and the search for order brings the individual into conflict with the universe. Waiting for Godot is a best example of absurd literature, where a leafless tree and no development of plot show human condition. This play totally deal with the life of a modern man and it's a purposeless life. The birthday party is a absurd play. The absurdity used by Pinter can sometimes be funny and we can laugh at it. But his idea is to really reflect how people felt in their own realities. He used this comical way to laugh at everything, even at tragic situations. Another important feature of this play is the way how words are used as weapons to avoid being hurt and not to reveal the past. Explain how territory is inevitable related to personal autonomy and security, and how the characters will achieve this through this language. The funny and comic side of the play is revealed and interpreted differently at the end of the play. The myth of Sisyphus is an absurd play. Camus used the Greek legend of Sisyphus as a metaphor for the human being's constant struggle against the absurdity of life. Sisyphus was condemned for eternity to repeatedly roll a boulder uphill, only to see it roll down is a never-ending circle of physical and mental labor. Sisyphus' logic fate is seen as one of rejoice at by Camus, since his theory of absurdism advocates the acceptance of human absurdity and seeing a contentment in it acceptance. Absurdity in Hindi TV serials. The the concept of reincarnation or a rebirth, where a character die in one life and is rebirth as another character in the same show with a completely different personality, backstory, and appearance. It is also represent absurdity. In other example, like the portrayal of supernatural elements and characters that defy scientific exploitation or logic. Here I put some example like Nagin TV series. The lead character turns into a shifting snake to take revenge on her enemies, which is an absurd and fantastical premise. Here is my work citation, and thank you. Now you can ask me a question.
Mansi, what is the reason behind the authors writing an absurd play?
uh, author writing a absurd play. Uh, it is a many reason to write a absurd plays like author exploiting his writing and try to experiment in a other genre. That's why he writing a absurd play, and also he criticize society. That's why he write a absurd play.
Mansi, how can absurdism be applied to contemporary social and political issues?
Basically in our real life and society we can see so many absurd situation in our life, uh, some political issues is like absurd. They have no meaning in these issues, but it's a problem of our politics. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Dabhi Nirali and today I am going to present on comparative analysis of modernism and postmodernism in literature. This is my personal introduction. This is the table of content. Uh, what is modernism? It was a prevalent form from late 19th and early 20th century. Modernism was influenced by the First World War. Modernism was a movement in the art in the first half of the 20th century that rejected traditional values and techniques and emphasize the importance of individual experience. Modernism was a movement not just in literature but also in art, philosophy, and cinema. Modernism is also considered as a philosophical movement. Its spirit is best reflected in a motto coined by Ezra Pound: "Make it new." Uh, Aronowitz reminds us that modernism is a philosophical or ideology, a response, if you will, to the frightening facts of modern life. Modernism is also was also popular in uh, the starting of 20th century. What is postmodernism? Postmodernism cannot be understood by ignoring modernism. Postmodernism is a school of thought or a movement that took place after World War II. Postmodernism relies on concrete experience over abstract principles, knowing always that the outcome of one's own experience will necessarily be fallible and relative rather than certain and universal. Postmodernism texts are marked by the mixture of time, culture, languages, real fact and fictions, the present and the past. Postmodernism was also popular in 1916s and 1970s. Characteristic of modernism. First one is individualism. Modernism values individualism and subjective reality over societal events, with protagonists struggling to adapt to change. Here I am and telling one example of individualism in modernism. The Great Gatsby novel is a example of this characteristic. Experimentation. Literary modernism rejected established writing norms and allow experimental with form. The example of the experimentation is a Westland poem, Absurdity, the theater of the absurd. It is reflect the idea that human existence has no great purpose or meaning. Franz Kafka's work also give the example of absurdism characteristic. Symbolism became a central characteristic of modernism in literature, with authors leaving blank for the reader's imagination to fill. Modernists use symbolism in every layer of their works, with multiple valid interpretations. The James Joyce's works and T.S. Eliot's work are also considered as symbolism characteristic works. Formalism. Formalism included the use of invented or foreign language and unconventional structure. Westland here is also Westland is a poem. Westland poem is considered as a formalism characteristic. Example. Characteristic of postmodernism. Globalization and multiculturalism. A huge globalization, different cultures are getting mixed. We can see the effect of this on architecture, food, music, literature, education, fashion, and organization. The Salman Rushdie's novel Midnight Children is example of this characteristic. New literary trends. Postmodernism authors tend to use irony and black humor in their writings. They present subject matters, even the serious ones, with the playfulness and fragmentation The third one, intertextuality, the referencing and incorporation of other texts, including popular culture, literature, and history, to create multiple layers of meaning. Multi, multiplayered and complex narratives is also included in intertextuality. 1001 Nights, The Wizard of Oz, and Midnight Children are examples of this characteristic. Writers of modernism and postmodernism. Here are I mentioned some writers' name of modernism and postmodernism time. Difference between modernism and postmodernism. The main difference between modernism and postmodernism is that modernism is characterized by the radical break from the traditional forms of prose and verse, whereas postmodernism is characterized by the self-conscious use of earlier styles and conventions. Modernists believe that truth in objective. In the other side, postmodernism consider truth as relative. Here I put one photograph of difference between modernism and postmodernism. I question to Chat GPT that make a table of difference between modernism and postmodernism in literature. It provide me the this result. Examples of modernism in literature. First one is James Joyce's Ulysses. Ulysses, the novel, reflects the modernist theme of individualism and the rejection of traditional values and institutions. Institutions. Joyce also used stream of consciousness in this novel. Second one is T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. The Wasteland is considered as a it reflect the fragmentation and disillusionment of past World War One in society. Third example is Ernest Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises. This example is considered as a of modernism because its exploration of the disillusionment and aimlessness of the past World War, and also individualism, the characteristic of the modernism. The fourth one is Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. This work is considered a modernism example for its stream of consciousness, narrative technique, and also the characteristic of individualism and impact on it. Fifth one is Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. This example is considered as a example of modernism because due to its exploration of the absurdity of human's existence and also use of symbolism and surrealism. The last one is William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury. This example is considered as a modernism's example due to its experimental narrative style, including the use of multiple narrators with different perspectives. Examples of postmodernism in literature. First one is Thomas Ficon's gravity's rainbow. This example is considered as a example of postmodernism due to its fragmented narrative structure and metafictional elements. Second one is Delillo's White Nose. And this example is considered as a postmodernism example because it challenges the traditional narrative structure and employ intertextuality. Third one is Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children. This example is considered as a postmodernism work because due to its use of intertextuality and playfulness with narrative structure. Uh, the fifth one, Janety Winterson's Sexing the Cherry. This and the sixth one is Toni Morrison's Beloved. This example is considered as a postmodernism work due to use of linear narrative structure and magical realism and intertextuality. This is my work citation.
Nirali, how does modernism view the role of the art in society, art and artists?
The modernism is was the movement of World War One. Sorry, in that time, poets and writers all are writing the genre on World War as a genre used as a World War. Uh, that time of artist uh, use this genre as in their work, and they are also consider their art as a modernist art.
Nirali, how we can see modernism and postmodernism, both in any novel, drama, or short story.
These both are the different movement from other time, but I right now I don't know the any example of this.
Hello everyone. In last day of presentation, I am going to discuss about Victorianism versus modernism. Here is my personal detail. Uh, the Here is the points which I am going to discuss. Victorianism, modernism, societal difference and literary difference, and example of works and conclusion. So first, Victorianism. According to Abraham, Victorianism is a frequently used in a derogatory way to connote narrow-mindedness, uh, sexual pragmatism, the denomination to maintain feminine innocence, and an emphasis on a social respectability. Victorian era was the period of Queen Victoria rise. Victorian era was characterized in religion, social values, and the arts. The age is also known as the age of prose or novel. In this period, there was a huge progress in science and arts, but with social unrest. In this era, two movement is very important. One is Oxford movement, and second one is a pre-Raphaelite school of poetry. First, modernism. The horrors of the World War first, and modernism is a horror of First World War, and second, 20th century was the full of progress and regress, which was because of scientific revolution movement. This movement in a philosophical and arts, the new form of writing and philosophy. Writers depart from a traditional reform of writing. In this movement, we find the abstract art, the stream of consciousness, novels, surrealism, expressionism, absurdism, and dadaism. Societal difference. Social classes of this era include upper, middle, and lower class. In the rise of Queen Victoria, always easy to follow and be affected by what authority and society dictates. Women's role in Victorian society to be modest, submissive, and dependent on a man. While in the modern era, women have more opportunity for personal and professional growth, like Virginia Woolf. She is a very famous writer of modern era. A modernist society think for themselves and be liberated by the chain of society. Modern society look at for Victorian society as dull and hypocritical. The rules and voice of authority was accepted in religion, political, and literature. Victorian's era society lived under the British Empire, while modern era society free to do whatever they want. Literary difference. Victorian authors wrote poems and novels that commented on social issues, on industrialization and class division. The themes of the Victorian era literature: religion, industrialization, class system, science, utilitarianism, women in a society, progress. Here is a famous novelist and poets. Novelist Charles Dickens, George Eliot, Thomas Hardy, W.M. Thackeray, Gerald Brown, and famous poet of Victorian age, Alfred Tennyson, Robert Browning, Elizabeth Barrett, D.J. Rossetti, and William Morris. Example of Victorian era. Jude the Obscure is a written by Thomas Hardy, and it described the theme of marriage, religion, and woman in a society. Jude marrying Arabella, and Shue marries Philodson. Both, but the marriage is unhappy because both regret on their decision and realize spelling mistake. How their decision affect their entire life. Shue is unique in Victorian society, and Jude quest to be accepted into a college at Christminster University town based on Oxford. Jude worked for years, but he is never accepted simply because of his social class and poverty. It present the social division of Victorian era. Hard times criticize the poor living condition of the lower class in the industrial town. Uh, while the modern literature describes the theme of disillusionment of 20th century because of the World War One and Two, the narrator mostly unreliable and break traditional writing style and add a new form of writing. Themes of the modern era: political individualism, absurdity, symbolism, formalism, loss and despair, experimentation, meaningless. Here is the modern writers: Samuel Beckett, Joseph Conrad, Ernest Hemingway, F.S. Fitzgerald, Eugene O'Neill, D.H. Lawrence, Virginia Woolf, Dorothy Richardson, E.M. Foster, and Alfred Doblin. One example of modern era, the Waiting for Godot describe the absurdity and existence. Both the characters, Vladimir and Estragon, don't know what to do in their life. They are just waiting for Godot. Is present the absurdity because they are nothing do new in both the acts. We find the individualism in the character Joy Gatsby in the Great Gatsby, written by F.S. Scott Fitzgerald. The novel For Whom the Bell Tolls also described the atmosphere of war and loss and despair. Another one novel, The Artist of the Floating World, described the situation of writer after wrote about war, how he is suffering uh, from his writing on a world war. Conclusion: in the Victorian era, people lived under the British Empire and class division. They believe in a religion, and in the modern era, people are free to do whatever they want. It focuses on individual expression and experimentation in art and literature. Here is work citation. Thank you.
Guys, can you give any other example of modernism which you have not mentioned in your slide?
Yes. T.S. Eliot's The Westland is one of the most popular example of modernism, where T.S. Eliot used lots of symbols and imagery. So this is one of the most famous example of modernism.
Payal, as you mentioned in your presentation, so can you describe what is a pre-Raphaelian moment in the Victorian era?
Yes. The pre-Raphaelite movement in a Victorian era. Pre-Raphaelite movement is a movement of a group of artists and the artists like DJ Resotti, Gabriel, and many others artists. And the aim of the this movement is create a new and powerful works. So this is a thank you.
So, hello everyone, myself Pooja Bhuva on this last and fifth day of SEM 2 presentation from the paper number 1010, History of English Literature from 1900 to 2000. I choose the topic, the use of non-linear narrative in theatre of absurd. Of course, yeah, in the modern era, there are so many concepts and movements are connected with this modernism, which make this modern era different from every other era. So in this era, of course, there is a traditional way of narrate a story, poetry, and so many works. But the non-linear narrative is a different from other and interesting too. So here are my personal information. Now let's see first what is non-linear narrative. So theater of absurd is known for its obsolete approach to narrative structure, often employing non-linear and fragment storytelling techniques. This can be seen as a reflection of the absurdity of human existence and the disorientation and confusion that can arise from living in an unpredictable and often nonsensical world. It means the absurdity and this non-linear narrative comes from our real life, that our life is unpredictable. We don't know what will gonna happen next. So a non-linear narrative style is a storytelling technique that does not follow a linear chronological sequence of events, like first start, then middle, and then end. No, it's happen differently. Instead, the story is presented in a fragment or non-chronological way, often through the use of flashback, dream sequence, or other techniques that disrupt the traditional flow of time. Now, what is traditional flow? The traditional flow is a flow or a technique which comes from the ancient time, start, middle, and end. So, in the theater of absurd, non-linear narrative is often used to reflect the absurdity of human existence and the chaotic unpredictable nature of the world. Now, this whole thing I reflect in these three lines, that if we see in a simple word, the work which didn't have start, middle, and end in traditional way, which was said by our ancient writers and philosopher and critics, writing it can be considered as a non-linear narrative. It is something opposite of a linear narrative. Now, what is the need of this non-linear narrative in the literature? Because every aspects, every topic has different aspects. So, what is need of this non-linear narrative in literature? It is really interesting, or it is relatable, related to our literature or not. So, non-linear narrative included in work maybe to generate confusion and disorientation, so that audience or reader concentrate on storytelling. In a non-linear narrative, the audience may be presented with events out of order, or with events that seems disconnected or even contradictory. Like in some movies or work, and some literature work, there are flashback techniques, and somewhere dream sequence. Like if we say in this context, stream of consciousness, we don't know in stream of consciousness work which line and which thought are gonna come. So a stream of consciousness work which is written in that way, it is also a very interesting non-linear narrative. So it seems like this style is also a tool to run the story smoothly with unpredictability, and also is for audience. There is a mistake in audience spelling. The audience is encouraged to engage more actively with the story and to draw their own conclusions about the meaning and significance of the events being portrayed. Now, different ways to present non-linear narrative. There is not a single way to present this non-linear narrative. There are different ways, which may be interesting. Some stories from the Arabian Nights, which is a very famous work, like the cities of brass, the three apples, don't follow a straight chronological order. Instead, they begin in the middle of the action, in a medias res. It is a name for this is this term, middle of the action, and jump back and forth in time using flashbacks to fill the gaps and provide more information about what happened. Like I what the anime name Naruto. In that series, there are so many fillers which is not related to real manga series, and that filler are for the conclusion and for the clearation that what happened and why this happened. The poem Beowulf, written in medieval English, doesn't tell the story of the main character's life in a straight chronological order, but instead that it jumps around the different important events throughout Beowulf's life, showing how he grows and changes over time. Now, in the late 18th and early 90s, writers like Joseph Conrad, Virginia Woolf, and others were modernist novelists who played with the way stories are told. Instead of sticking to the straight way, they experiment with the different ways of organization, events, and sometimes skip around in time, like some unnecessary thing and time and stories they skip in their work. Now, a theater of absurd. What is role of this non-linear narrative in theater of absurd? So, a critic named Martin Ashlin came up with a term in 1960 called the theater of absurd. In his essay, he called about a group of playwrights who wrote in this style, including Samuel Beckett, Arthur Admove, and Eugene Ionesco. The term refers to play that are strange and don't make sense in a traditional way. The term the theater of absurd comes from an essay by French philosopher named Albert Camus. In his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, written in 1942, Camus said that life is meaningless and absurd. The play by Samuel Beckett, Arthur Admove, and others are part of this theater. All have a similar view that people are living the world that they don't understand. Means there is a reflection, and there is a little bit a glimpse of a war on these writers. So in modernism there are absurdness. The word doesn't seem to have any meaning, and people the world doesn't seem to have any meaning, sorry, and people feel lost and afraid in this world. Now means they don't know why are they here and what goal now they want to play, and what role they are going to play in this world. The structure of the plays in the theater of absurd often goes into a circle, starting and ending at the same point, like start and end are the same. Now, non-linear narrative in Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett is a play that employs a non-linear narrative structure. The play structure is not chronological and it jumps back and forth between the different time periods and events. The non-linear structure of the play supports this sense of emptiness, meaningless, and existentialism. Means this play also has some thought of emptiness in it, meaningless. Now, what they are doing, the actions this to Vladimir and Estragon doing, it is meaningless and they has no sense at all. The characters often repeat the same actions and conversation, and that repetition of these actions is a reason, is a cause emptiness in the play and the meaninglessness in the play. They are stuck in the action of waiting and not able to move forward. This show how powerless they are to make their own choices, and this might have happened because of the use of non-linear narrative in the play by Samuel Beckett. Now, second example I take non-linear narrative in, but it too has the non-linear narrative in it. One can see by the structure of this play, like how first this Mac came, PT came, and then and the hero, the main character came, and after out of the blue, this Goldberg and Mecken came without any introduction. The play is structured in a way that jumps back and forth in time, shows different events from a different perspective. Everyone thinking a different way, and with different perspective, this character reflect themselves, creating a sense of disorientation for the audience. Like a character of Meg is for someone old lady. There has so many perspective with every character. In this play, the feeling of non-linearity can be reflected through the way everyone feels trapped in that boarding house and can never escape from it. Like there is a trap for everyone, but they cannot see, and that they cannot able to escape too. The way scenes of Stanley, Mac, Pitty, Goldberg, Becken, and Lulu came one after another, it clearly seems to be a non-linear way of writing. This scene of Lulu came in the play
and in the movie cut down by the director can be a hint of unnecessary and non-linear narrative. Like in the play, in the original play, there is two or three scenes of Lulu which is connected with this character Stanley, but in the movie there are a little bit scene of this Lulu. The time when Goldberg and Mecken come into the play out of the blue is also considered as this narrative because who are they, why they come, that is unclear in this play, and that make this play non-linear narrative. Now, some other examples I took for this narrative from Theatre of Absurd. This sentence acknowledges that some of the plays may have a more obvious non-linear narrative than others, but all of them still demonstrate some level of non-linearity. Now, in every play, it is not necessary that every play is a non-linear, but little glimpses and little scenes are also can be non-linear narrative. The cheers has a old couple in it, story of old couple. Now the bald soprano, the Happy Days by Samuel Beckett. This story created around this lady, and the Crape's Last Step by Samuel Beckett. Now, most of the play of Samuel Beckett are theater of absurd and reflect the story of non-linear narrative. So this is all for today. Thank you. Here my work citation. I'm open for questions.
What is the importance of absurdism?
Of absurdity in literature, we all know that absurdity is a term which came in modern era. So and before the modern era there is a two world war happened, and because of that stress, depression, anxiety, the term called absurdity emerged. And this in this absurdity there is no meaning, but also there is in that absurdity there is a enjoyness and interest. So like there is a term that art for art's sake is a absurdity, in the same way the absurdity is for something that can be enjoyed and that has no meaning. So important in literature is that it is for enjoyment, and to understand sometimes that absurdity make no sense, but somewhere we know that absurdity has a little sense if we try to connect with our reality too. Thank you.
Pooja, can you give any other example of the non-linear narrative in the theater of the absurd which you not mentioned in your presentation?
Which I didn't mention in my presentation. Non-linear narrative in theater of absurd. I cannot say in theater of absurd there are particular books which theater of absurd called as non-linear, but apart from that I like to tell a different one which um, I'm not able to remember now, so I'll tell you in comment section. Thank you.
Schools is still not given a certificate. Payal, then Rinkal, Nirali, Rinkal. So once you will do this one, then the rest will be ready. Then the rest will be very sad. There also will be bundle. તમારો સર્ટિફિકેટ પ્રિન્ટ કોઈ નહીં કરી આપે એનો કોઈ મુહૂર્ત જોવાનું નથી આપણે સારા ચોપડીયામાં આપણે ઇમિડિયેટલી અમુક કામ આવે એટલે તરત પૂરા કરવાના જ હોય એમાં એટલી
Can I start? Good afternoon to everyone. This is my last presentation of the season 2, and my today's topic is various interpretations of the play The Birthday Party by Harold Pinter. This is my personal academic information. This is the point that I have to discuss in further slides. The brief introduction of author Harold Pinter was a British playwright, screenwriter, director, and actor, and he was also a Nobel laureate, and he won Nobel Prize in 2005. Harold Pinter was known for his distinctive writing style, which often including long pauses, silence, and repetition to convey meaning and tension. This type of uh, characteristic we can see also in the birthday party play by him. Pinter was also an outspoken political activist and was involved in various causes including human rights, anti-war efforts, and the fight against censorship. When Pinter got Nobel Prize at that time, in his Nobel Prize speech, he also told about the politics of America and England in a very harsh manner. He criticized the government who are ruling over the people in a very bad manner. The play, The Birthday Party is known for its distinctive writing style, which includes long pauses and silence and convey tension and unease. The play themes and characteristics continue to resonate with audience today. When he wrote this play after in mid 1950s. So this play first played in a theater, and after that this play is uh, published in hard copy. So when this play played in theater at that time, very bad responses got from audience. But after that, this play is a very influence of 20th century, and nowadays it's a very important play of the 20th century. Various interpretations of the play The Birthday Party may have been a theatrical failure in 1958, but by the time of his death in 2008, it had become one of the most famous dramatists in the world. These are the major character of the play. Uh, Patty and Meg, they were both are husband wife, and they are landlord who gave their home for rent at sea coast of city. Stanley was a protagonist and main character of our play. In this play, Goldberg and McCann, who both are a stranger who comes to this home, and they play very significant role in this play, and they behave very bad with Stanley. In Harold Pinter's work, the infamous pauses and silence are are a major topic of this, are major characteristic of this play. This play is considered as a comedy of menace and absurd play. Uh, the comedy of menace is a term coined by British playwright David Campton in 1950s, described a particular style of comedy. In comedy of menace, we can see it is not a direct comedy, just comedy, but
In this comedy we cannot able to laugh, so it's a meanness. An absurd play is the form of theater that empathizes the irrational and illogical aspect of the human experiences, often through the use of nonsensical dialogue, surreal imagery, and disjoint plot structure. We can see this type of elements in our play, The Birthday Party. The dialogues are very unnecessary. We feel it. What is the importance of dialogue? Why these dialogues are in this play? So we have questions about the writing style and narrative style. Artist and society. Stanley stands as an artist. When he talk about his past, he say, "I am a pianist and artist who," and he himself tells, "I am very famous artist." And Lulu is the inspiration of an artist, as we see in the play. Political reading. Stanley, Goldberg, and McCain. Stanley was stand for a developing country, and Goldberg and McCain stand for developed nation, big nation, powerful nation, those who have economically powerful and politically powerful nation. As we have seen at the mid of an act two, at the mid of the play, Goldberg and McCain done very brutal things with Stanley. They are irritating him, torturing him, and but Stanley has a very good willpower and he stands against him. But at the last of the play, he can't able to stand against him, and at the last he defeated by Goldberg and McCain. So the Stanley, the type of character stand for small countries, and Goldberg and McCain are stand for like a country like US and UK. Some says that the mature painter claiming The Birthday Party as a political play was being a terrific designation, but I would agree. This is the portion that I have copied from one article. And Billington, he was a biographer of painter. So he says, but I would argue that the evidence was always there as evidence of political reading of this play. The comic nature of Goldberg and McCain's heterologically actually highlights the sheer brutality and their verbal torture. Goldberg and McCain make torture upon Stanley. There is physical torture as well as mental torture. They asking bunch of questions, and their question has no meaning at all, but they are asking, and this how Stanley feels mental stress, and this type of torture are happening in this way. And Stanley was personally has some hepophobia. It is like if unknown person touches him, so he don't like it. This is the part of dialogue. Pinter's political critique. Ultimately, this overlap of comedy and menace in the play serves to reinforce the sheer sizzliness of violence committed by political authority. Though those countries are powerful political background, they are always try to defeat their small countries. In the context of Nepal and Bhutan, we can see the Nepal and Bhutan both are very small country between India and China. So they are faces very problems from both their big countries for their freedom, for their individual freedom and their authority. They are suppressed by big countries as well as the use of comedy then heightens the terror and incongruity of political violence. The lack of sense and meaning threaten the individual into losing sense and meaning. This last line shows in the play the lack of sense and meaning. That is, when we are go through the play, we can feel there is a senselessness is there, meaninglessness is there. They are the as a absurdity. So, a individual person also losing their sense and meaning. Spiritual and psychological reading. Stanley stands as a soul trying to get free from the cage of the body. And at that time, Goldberg and McCann stands as the agent of death. As well as psychological reading, Goldberg and McCann represent the past of Stanley's own subconscious mind, and Pinter's theater reflects the spiritual and philosophical insights of our age, and no criticism can presume the Pinterical its ultimate mysteries. Here, slides are missequenced by me. The desire to know, the desire to coherence the narrative calls up the specters of Oedipus. The right side portion is the one lady tries to know about the interpretation of from Harold Pinter, and he wrote letter to Harold Pinter, and in this letter she wrote to Harold Pinter, "Dear sir, I would be obedient if you would kindly explain to me the meaning of your play, The Birthday Party. These are the points which I do not understand." And these are three questions written by her, and Harold Pinter replied to this lady, kindly explain to me the meaning of your letter. These are the points which I do not understand. So the same question that she is asking, this type of three question also sent by Harold Pinter in reply. Conclusion. The birthday party, through its setting, character, language, and themes, the play is interpreted the commentary of the danger of authoritarianism and lose of individuals' freedom. The character in the play can be seen the repetition, broader themes and concepts related to politics and power. At the last, when Stanley was taken from Maccan and Goldberg, at that time, the Petty, who is a landlord and husband of Meg, he was trying to stop those both people, but he was trying to refuse them to took Stanley. But at that time, they both people give him some money, so he lose his powers to stand against the power, and he accept the money and allow to took Stanley with him. The birthday party challenged serious dramatic literature's tradition, portraits of villain and victim with complexity that demand radiation of those terms. The birthday party is in a traditional manner. We have satire, but in birthday party, it's not directly looks like satire. But when we are reading it in a different meaning, at that time we can see this is the different kind of characteristic of literature. When it's sometimes it's hard to read about those type of satire and other things, so it's a very good part and good characteristic of the 20th century literature. This is my work cited. Thank you. Now I open for question answer.
So Rajeshwari, as you described in your PPT about comedy of mirrors, so how does the birthday party use comedy of mirrors to create a sense of unease and discomfort with the display of with the sense of absurdity and comedy?
Okay.
how the birthday party used comedy of menace to create a sense of unease and the discomfort, as we have seen in movie adaptation of this play and in original play, the birthday party itself a comedy of menace, because of there is a unseen and discomfort. The character of this play are always in some type of discomfort, and when we are seeing their activities, we can feel it is nonsense, nonsensical activities. We can't justify it as a normal human. So this type of characteristics create a discomfort for reader and as well as for whom though are watching movies, and uneasiness. So it's as stands as a comedy of meanness.
Just one more. Can you find any difference between adaptation and birthday party?
Yes, there is always this type of a difference between movie adaptation and original play. So it's always better to go through the original play. When in class we are watching this this movie adaptation, at that time some dialogues from the characters are quite different from original play, not at all different, but some things are different, and some in movie adaptation we can feel the music. So with the music we can feel some type of particular feeling, but when we are reading original play, at that time music and sounds are not there, so we have to assume by our own self. So this type of differences are always happening in any not for only this, but any movie adaptation and original literature. Thank you.
Next, you can start.
Hello everyone, I am Rinkal, and the topic of my today's presentation is representation of India in 20th century European literature with the reference to Siddharth. Siddharth in the novel, it is the novel. These are my academic details and representation of India European literature. These are the another books which are representing India in the Western in the European literature. Introduction. Hermann Karl Hesse was a German novelist, essayist, and poet. He wanted to cure his sickness with life by immersing himself in Eastern philosophy. Uh, Hesse is relatively little known in his country. He has so far no large popular following. He didn't follow this much, and also he wrote in some different languages. This that is the main reason was there, that he was not as much popular. His works are not so much for entertainment, but rather want to give food for the thought. In 1946, he received the Nobel Prize in Literature. Siddhartha novel by Hermann Hesse. The name Siddhartha is made up of two words in the Sanskrit language. Siddha means achieved, something is which is achieved. The artha, which means a meaning. The meaning of artha is meaning or the wealth. The one who has found meaning of existence, or he who has attained his goals. The book is the writer's ninth novel, was written in German in a simple lyrical style. It was published in the US in 1951 and became influential during 1960s. The novel is largely autobiographical and has a long, interesting, interesting history. That the novel is that writer has put some of his autobiographical elements into the novel, that his mother and grandfather and father all are also aware of the Indian culture and languages. There are two parts of the novel, and both of the these are the chapters of the parts. In the first part, there is a chapter named the Brahmin Son, with Shamanas, Gautam, awakening, and in the second part there are these characters Kamla. Kamla is a character, and it is the name of chapter also. Amongst the people, Sansar by the river, the ferryman, the sun, Om, and the Govinda. Here is the spelling mistake. Four stages are there of the life of Siddhartha. The Siddhartha is not that one of that we all are aware of Gautam Buddha. He is not that. The person is the Brahmin boy, and he is there who was Siddhartha still defined himself as a philosophical and religious person and distanced himself from the world of merchants. Then he was living in the field there, the work of merchants were living there, and they were earning from the merchantry kind of works. And that is the was the first step, that he didn't like that much. And the second is that he goes more and more attached to the luxurious life and its comfort. Then in the second part, he goes attached, and he attracts by the luxurious life and comforts. The man who once disposed the merchants and the people has finally turned he has finally turned into such a child himself, and then more greedy, more unscrupulous, and more wasted than most of them. That the one who was hating at the merchantry kind of works, and then he has turned into more greedy than all of them. And the fourth one is the turning point, where he comes over all the kind of the layers and finally gets the meaning. Representation of India in the novel. The study of Siddhartha provides not only insight into Western religious thought, but also a valuable representation of the influence of religion and culture on literature. Provides insight into the theme of one's search for personal identity. Protagonist Siddhartha is restless and seeks self-realization and inner knowledge. And he left his father's household to join another, to get something meaningful. Siddhartha's base insights which lead him to ordinary physical pleasure created by that kind of materially pleasures are also there in India. Not only the that kind of good things, that philosophical and meaningful search for meaning and all the kinds of things are presented here in the novel, but there are some weak points are also there. That Kamaswamy, the businessman, who was very much greedy and lustful toward his money and business. And the another is Kamla. The prostitution is also represented here. These are my work cited. Thank you. Now you can ask me questions.
there is a free there, isn't it? You have to remember your work, not read there.
So, Rinkal, as you describe about Siddhartha, that point of view about that. So, what are your points of view about the description of India made by Hess in this work?
Okay. The description which has made upon the Indian philosophy and the particular Indian society. Both are different things. That the one is philosophical, insightful meaning, and the search for meaning and all that kind of things, which the main character Siddhartha has represented. And the another one is the prostitution. Not only the prostitution, but Kamla was the one who was teaching Siddhartha to how to love, and at the last his son also, she left his her son and their son, the son of Siddharth, to him, and then Siddharth learned to take responsibility of his own son, and then he learned all that kind of things. But not only the both parts are there. The one side is good and as much as the bad side, that how people were so much in the comfortable life, and the another the corrupted and merchant life also. And here are the four parts, four siddhantas are there in the novel also. That one is dukkha, that ultimate suffering is the one that one can find meaning in suffering also. That is what the Buddha also faced in his life. Then another.
Rinkal, what is the forcing elements for writer to take this title?
Okay. The writer took that title, particularly Siddharth. That the title is very much similar to the Gautam Buddha, the life of Gautam Buddha also. That the writer's grandfather, his mother and father, all were very much aware of Indian culture and Indian languages. And then he was aware of very much many Indian songs and the Indian literature particularly. And then in the novel, that why Siddharth only is the title. That as much as that Siddharth, the Gautam Buddha left his home, and the name of Gautam Buddha was Siddharth, and he left his home. And the same here, the Siddharth also left his home to find something, and then to get he find the ultimate meaning of his life, as Gautam Buddha also had found in his life. That is the significance here. Okay, thank you.
Change the sequence of asking questions if any number is changed.
Sir, can I start?
Yes.
A very good morning, all of you. Today is the last day of our presentation. Today is my topic is a comparative study of absurdity in Waiting for Godot and the Birthday Party. Here is my personal information. Table of contents which I have present in my presentation. First of all, what is absurdity? Absurdity fiction is a genre of novels, plays, poems, films, or other media that focuses on the experiences of character in situation where they cannot find any inherent purpose in life.
most often represented by ultimately meaningless action and events that call into question the certainty of existential concepts. Absurdity in Waiting for Godot. Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot and Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party in terms of their rejection of characteristic of the traditional drama and analyze in what ways these plays are absurd. The moment of absurd drama rose in Paris, France, now that it was seen as the center of art of the world at that time. Absurd drama resists the traditional forms of conventional drama, which has traditional based on strong roots, and in it the inharmoniousness between the human being and the world is portrayed. The absurd drama minimizes all the visual and sensitive elements on stage. The most known dramatists are Samuel Beckett, Harold Pinter, Eugene Ionesco, Arthur Adamo, who criticize the conventional drama and its elements in their work in a direct or indirect way and make them problematic while trying to expose their own theater conception. We can regard Vladimir and Estragon as two punks who seems to have no aim in life, which is actually one of the feature of the absurd drama. Absurd drama, having no aim, as the title of the play suggests, the play portrays the audience or reader the aimless behavior of the two characters for spending time while waiting for Godot. In Act 1, the dialogue between Estragon and Vladimir is like a summary of the play. Vladimir says, "What do we do now?" Estragon, "Wait." Vladimir, "Yes, but while waiting." Estragon says, "What about hanging our slaves?" Furthermore, the only thing they do are to put on their shoes, eat turning, thinking of committing suicide by hanging themselves and pee. And as a result of this dull waiting absurd dialogue take place. In Bucket's Waiting for Godot and Pinter's The Birthday Party, language is not a means of communication but a means of killing time. At the beginning of the Act 1 of Waiting for Godot, Estragon says nothing to be done. With this bucket displays his nihilistic idea, and following a few pages, the same character says there is nothing to show. It seems that, according to the writer, the human life is absurd, and thus the work of it need to have absurd style. The place is where nothing to be done and seen and shown. Waiting for Godot means hope for the two aimless character. Beckett presents the meaninglessness of existence to the audience by using ridiculous characters. Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party. Harold Pinter's play The Birthday Party is similar in many ways to Waiting for Godot. In his plays, Pinter mostly deals with human experience and describes the human experience as grief. The human is portrayed as alone in a painter's play, as he can communicate neither with himself nor others. In the play, Stanley is such a person. He does not talk about himself or let anybody get to his world, as he is not able to hide himself. He always wears a mask. Painter regards the human in a war. Stanley is a closed book. He does not reveal his inner world to the others. Moreover, he tries not to give his room or house, which is a sign of his existence and identity. He is motionless in his room and secure. The struggle between the outsider and insider is portrayed
with the struggle between Stanley and Goldberg and McKinnon. The danger outside represents the human's past and is repressed unconscious. Although there is a loser and winner at the end of this struggle, this is not always a certain border between the loser and winner as this struggle lasts forever and the loser and the winner always replace. In Pinter's The Birthday Party, Stanley is portrayed to be frightened. He lives in a fear and waits for the day when somebody will take him. And then Goldberg and McKinnon arrives. Everything is portrayed upside down. Culturally sanctioned identities are capable for frightening reversals as a painter famously shows, oppressed group McKinnon and Goldberg in the birthday party become seemingly the oppers themselves. Meg prepares a birthday party for Stanley. She presents a drum to Stanley. Goldberg, McKinnon, Meg, and neighbor Lulu join the party. He is the loser against the Meg and Lulu. He is angry with Meg as she cannot defend him against Goldberg and McKinnon. It seems that the sexuality of Lulu makes him frightened. Meg cannot prevent Goldberg's and McKinnon's taking Stanley. She is not even aware what is going around. She is not aware that Stanley is taken to be killed. Here is some dialogue between Meg and Patty. Meg says, "What time did you go out this morning, Patty?" Patty says, "Same time as usual." Meg says, "Was it dark?" Patty says, "No, it was light." Meg, "But sometimes you go out in the morning and it's dark." Patty, "That's in the winter." Meg says, "Oh, in winter?" Petty replied, "Yes, it gets light later in winter." Although they are wife and husband, it seems that lack of communication or monotonous dialogues makes them alienated to themselves. But Pinter's plays are not solely about unexpected moments of isolation. They are equally about unexpected moments of alliance. Both Waiting for Godot and The Birthday Party, like many absurd dramas, express the meaninglessness of human state and logical approach to this state. The human is alone in the world, and he or she is the loser who is forced to live there. The human is not harmony with the world. One of the principle of the absurd drama is to reflect the disharmony by creating disharmony on the stage. Neither of the plays propose alternative solution for better living condition. On the contrary, it is emphasized that the human is forced to live in bad condition. Therefore, it can be said that both plays try to reflect the relationship between absurd request of human and absurdness of the world. Absurdity in movie. In a PK movie which published in 2040, this is a sci-fi comedy follows the story of an alien who lands on Earth and gets caught up in the complexities of human society. The film feature absurd situation, quirky characters, and a message about the importance of questioning blind faith and superstition. Another movie is a Tumbad. In this movie, most of scenes are absurd. Using most of scenes in use absurdity in various ways. Here is my work citation, and thank you.
Riddhi, how does absurd plays affect readers?
Absurd drama means meaninglessness in the play uh, by characters and characters and its effect on reader.
Riddhi, which of these two plays is following absurdity in a realistic way? Is it relevant to yours?
In my slide, I mentioned the birthday party and waiting for Godot uh, is always based on always use is absurdity in both plays in and it's also relevant today because most of movies or story uses this type of absurdity in sometimes.
Hello everyone, very good noon to all. Today on the last day, fifth day of the presentation of semester 2, I am going to explore my presentation on the topic fantasy and religious vision in 20th century literature. These are the points which I am going to discuss in the presentation. So, let us first begin with what is fantasy literature. So, as M.H. Abraham notes in a glossary of literary criticism, this term encompasses novel and short stories that represent an imagined reality that is radically different in its nature and functioning from the world of our ordinary experience. It projects future utopia or else take an aspect of current society by imagining their dystopian conclusions. So, fantasy literature provides social issues through various use of various religious and other fantastic stories. What is religious? The belief in and worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods. A god means in Christianity, Christian people believe in one god, whereas in Hindu we have so many gods to worship. What is the relation between fantasy and religion? So fantasy and religion both are very much intertwined with each other, and the relation between both this is quite complex also to notice. Fantasy and religion incorporates with each other. Both are based on same kinds of belief, means imaginary worlds, but the way of exploration of ideas and meanings and messages are somewhat different. in religion God is always at the center, but if we will look at fantasy literature, there we cannot find that who is always center. Sometimes man is at the center, and sometimes supernatural being is also at the center. So there is unpredictability about the central character, or who is at the center. Religious stories are also based on fantasy, as in all the all the religion of the world. There is always kind of stories woven around god and gods. Many a time, religious plays a vital role to frame fantasy stories. Fantasy stories are very much connected to what is conveyed by religious, not the ideas of religion, but the way of spreading morals. Sorry, not morals, but ideas which are useful for the welfare of human being and the society, which are leading towards dystopian society. Incorporating fantasy and religious vision in 20th century literature. Filmer notes in one of his articles, fantasy literature does two things. It comes to the term with the existential angst of the 20th century and accepts the reality of skepticism that pervades the external world. In religion, we can't see, there is no scope of skepticism, which is always elaborated by religion, that our religion are more scientific. But in fantasy stories, there are more scope of being skeptical, and they accept that, whereas religious hardly accepts all these things. Fantasy literature fulfills major purpose of religious discourse. It articulates hope in postmodern world, which has learned to deeply distrust the leaders of organized religions. I have forgot to mention here S.C. Ward's reference of skepticism and questioning and examining, what which he described in his work 20th century, and notes about H.G. Well. He says that 20th century is much different from the previous centuries. It and not only believing in what has been said, but rather in 20th century, skepticism and being always skeptical and raise questions are essential in 20th century. The fantasy can be considered as part of religious tradition as well. There are various examples of fantasy stories which are having religious vision in it, like The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. I will be dealing with The Lord of the Rings and The Chronicles of Narnia. Let us first look at The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. It is written in 3 volumes set in Middle Earth. This work is considered as being initiative to fantasy story, incorporating religion in it. Here one point should be noted that Tolkien was a Catholic, though he has many a time refused that his works are not of allegory of religion, but we can find Christian intellectual tradition as well as Christian interpretation and exemplification of Christian beliefs in The Lord of the Rings. There are 3 volumes of the novel, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, The Return of the King. So, what is there in the Lord of the Rings, and which is common, which contains religious views also, good versus evil? So, the whole series of the novel is about triumph of good over evil, where Frodo and other triumph over Sauron's power, who is supposed to destroy the world. In The Lord of the Ring, Gandalf is presented or depicted like Christ-like figure, and his qualities such as wisdom, compassion, and self-sacrifice are being can be compared to Christ also. Here I have put the photo from the movie series where when Gandalf come back after he sacrificed his life and come again, there is a kind of a light. So this image of the novel, this frame of the movie shows us that Gandalf is somewhat being compared to Christ-like figure. Antagonist is Sauron, and Ring is a kind of temptation for all of them, and which is in it evil power. Frodo is a hero. Magic is in its base. Everything is being controlled by magic. There are prophecies also. Providence is also. There are film series. Lord of the Rings was released between in 2001 to 2003. So in a way, the series of the novel, The Lord of the Rings, contains the religious essence of that, and through which, though in 20th century religious beliefs were not being accepted at all, this but through this kind of works, those ideas of compassion and creating a better world is being conveyed. Now, the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. It is series of 7 books set in Narnia, a fictional realm, fantasy world of magic, where there is mythical beings with who are talking, which are talking about animals. This contains adventures of children who unfold the history of the Narnia world. It is, as I mentioned, it is a series of 7 books. It was The Magician's Nephew, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, The Horse and His Boy, Prince Caspian, The Voyage of the Dawn Trader, The Silver Chair, The Last Battle. In this picture of the Chronicles of Narnia, above you can see that the horse is having wings. This series of works have Christian faith in it, as in Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe. There is a conversation, there is a dialogue. Here is always winter, never Christmas. So really, Christian ideologies came here, reference of Christianity came here. Many a place the reference of Christianity came. This is about a witch who is living in the province of Narnia. Aslan dies to save Edmund's life, and this sacrifice can be compared to the sacrifice of Christ. In Chronicle of Narnia, miniature Bible, D.T. Mears compares this series of novel with Bible. There is linear concept. In this series. There is linear concept like Bible. Uttards call it a soul of Bible for Bible-less age. So what is the comparison? Death of Christ, which is compared to Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The personal choice to trust and follow Christ in Prince Caspian. The spiritual life as a journey towards God in The Voyage of the Dawn Trader. The importance of perseverance in the face of modern world in the silver chair. God's constant providence in the in the horse and his boy. The manifestation of providence in the creation in The Magician's Nephew, and for last night in The Last Battle. The last battle ends with the triumph of good over evil, and all the children's are being triumph over the place of province of Narnia. D.T. Mears also says that there in this novel there is a kind of a linear concept from Genesis to Revelation, which is described in the Bible. Now, sorry, I think it is been not erased. The recent movie 2020-22 Brahmastra can be compared to what has been in the Lord of the Rings, not in that proper way, but can be categorized in this category. This is Bollywood Hindi fantasy film directed by Jan Mukherjee. uh, there is a Brahma Shakti which is produces various astras. Shiva, there is battle and fight between Shiva and Junun and Zor. Shiva is protecting the astras, whereas Junun and Zor wants to get Brahmastra to overpower the human race. Shiva is in himself Agnyastra, and there is a concept of Brahmansh, a secret society to produce the world, protect the world from the power of Astras. So, there is always a kind of a fear of the activation of this Brahmastra. So, member of Brahmansh are protecting those evil, this Brahmastra from evil powers like Junun and Jor, who are having a bad or evil kind of mindsets to overpower the whole human race by using Brahmastra. And at the end, our protagonist Shiva gets success over the Shiva gets powers. Can get from me. At the end, Shiva is able to uh, to stop reactivated Brahmastra, who was been activated by the death of Junun, who is sacrificed to this Brahmastra to get the power of Brahmastra. In Hindu this concept can be compared to Hindu mythology, where there is Brahmastra in Ramayana and Mahabharata. Also, we have seen that Brahmastra, when it is being activated, it has strength to destroy many things at one time. So this film can be in not in that sense, but in a broader way to this category of fantasy and religious views. Now, what is the role of fantasy and religion in addressing social issues? So, all these fantasy stories incorporating religious beliefs are tend to explore the ideas of how explore the idea of real world and societal issues. There is always a kind of dystopian prediction of a dystopian society, and the hero or the protagonist of each fantasy stories are preventing those who are those who want to make society dystopian by ruling over the whole human race. There is always danger of power, but at the end of most of the fantasy stories, or I may say the all the fantasy stories, there is a kind of hope which gives us consolation that there will be good, there will be triumph over good, over there will be triumph of good over evil, and the world will be better of what better for living for human beings. So I would like to conclude by representing an imagined reality. Reality fantasy literature addresses the societal issues and provides insights into the human condition, and it also gives us a way how to solve this question, but not in that broader way, but it lets us to think that what should be done if such conditions will happen. So these are the works which I have cited. Thank you. Now I'm open for questions.
Shali, how does the interaction between literature and religion influence the development of fantasy? And to what extent do they mutually shape each other also?
Okay. Between literature and religion. So, how does the interaction between literature and religion influence the development of fantasy? Literature is many a times literature and religion are incorporated with each other, and this gives rise to fantasy stories. Though in literature it is difficult to say that each and every time religious is being incorporated, but though many time it is incorporated, and this the combination of both religion and literature shapes the fantasy story. If both the elements, both type of genres will not be connected, then the exploration of fantasy story would not be possible.
Trushali, how do authors use elements of fantasy in their representation of religion in 20th century literature?
Yeah. In 20th century literature, we want to find direct reference to them. Many a times, it is possible that they are using direct reference, but as 20th century is having a characters of being skeptical in literature and any work of art, and also in livings which differs from the Victorian era. It represents another kind of sorry. It represents religion not directly, but by giving various archetypes of the characters which are similar to God, or the characters which are in religion, which are supernatural. So this is how fantasy represents. There is a representation of religion in 20th century, not direct, but many a times direct, but no, mostly not directly, but in a way of archetypes. Thank you. Very good afternoon, all of you. My name is Upasana Goswami. Today I will present the function of art in modernism. These are my personal information. These are the key point of which I have discussed in my presentation. What is a modernism? Historical context, characteristics of a modernist art, the function of art in modernism, the legacy of a modernism, and then conclusion. First point, what is modernism? Modernism is a literary and artistic movement that began in the late 19th century and departed from previous traditional and classical form of art and literature. It is a global movement where creativities ridiculously produce a new imagery medium, new imagery mediums, and the means to best portray modern life. The moment not only was embraced by literature, but art, music, architecture, and other field of thinking. Historical context, modernism was born out of a time of great social upheavals caused by industrialism, modernization, and the First World War. First World War shattered the concept of the progress too many resulting in fragmentation in both content and structure. The ideal of the enlightenment claimed the new technology would bring progress to humans. Technological advances would improve society and quality of the life. Yet this was destroyed by World War One. As a technological advances simply increased the mass destruction of life. The war resulted in the disillusionment of society and a deep pessimism of human nature. Themes picked up by a modernism such as in the poem The Wasteland, which is published in 1922 by T.S. Eliot. Characteristic of modernist art. What we call modern art lasted for a entire century and involved dozens of different movements, embracing almost everything from pure abstraction to the hyperrealism, from anti-art school like Dada and Fluxus to classical painting and sculpture. For art, no new one to Behu's and pop art. So great was the diversity that is difficult to think of many unfailing characteristics which define the era. But if there is anything that is separates the modern artist from the both the earlier traditionalities and the later postmodernist. It is their belief that art mattered to them. Art had a real value. These are the some characteristic of modernist art. First, new types of art. Modern artists were the first to development collage art as assorted from as assemblage of a variety of kinetic art, several genres of photography, animations, land art of earthwork, and performs the art. Second is the use of new materials. Modern painters affected object to their canvases, such as fragment of a newspaper and other items. Sculptures found objects like the reed-mades of Marisol Duchamp, from which they created work of junk art, Uh, Assemblances were created out of the most ordinary everyday items like cars, clocks, suitcase, wooden box, and other items. Third, expressive use of colors. Movements of modern art like Fuvism, expressionism, and color-filled painting were the first to exploit color in a major way. New technologies. The chromolite graphy was invented by the poster artist Jules Cherrit. Automatic drawing was developed by surrealist painters, as was of Frotage and declamine gesturalized painters invited action painting. Pop artists introduced the banded dots and silk screen printing into fine arts. The function of art in modernism. Important intellectual resource of modernism in this sense are thinkers who had a question. Thus, certainties that had supported traditional modes of a social organization, religious and morality, and also traditional way of conveying has the human self important intellectual prosecutors of modernism. In this sense, are a thinker who had a question that certainties that had supported traditional modes of a social organization, religious and morality, and also traditional way of conveying the human self. At the heart of the modernist aesthetics lay the conviction that the previously should sustain the structure of a human life, whether social, political, religious, or artistic, had been either destroyed or show up falsehood or fantasies. Few points of modernist art and literature. Seeing that modernism focus on art as it stands, it distance from a social conversation concern. Therefore, modernist art does not save religious morality and the like. Modernist art and literature are not a deal with a person, whose interests are material and a commonplace nature, and whose mentally is a form of the stock ideas and a conventional idea of his or her group. And the time, in short, art in modernism has got more to do with intellectualism rather than vulgarity and Philistinism, as T.L. Eliot said, 1960, said that it is obvious that we can no more explain a passion to a person who has never experienced it than we can explain light to the blind. Art per se is of a high significance insofar as it is a use or as a subject matter of a modernist work at time that is so say art is mainly at the service of art in modernism. The extent to which truth, whether or not a transcendental signified to play role in a literary short of a modernist is a great significance for an author. The legacy of modernism, nonetheless, a homemade world offers a reader the chance to brood about the legacy of modernism, since even by Necker's estimation, the movement has run into course. One can see it energies evolving out of the 19th centuries. Notions of the poet as a visionary and the purpose of art as expanding awareness since deter at the 18th century. The nature of awareness has been shifting from a moral and aesthetic framework to a concept of experience as experience. The subjective objective determined of after a not white and science and modern world. For example, consistent in determining not the purpose of man, but if reality lies as a subject's ability to involve himself in or discover, diverse himself from experience. Technology gives way to an existentialism in which neither the good nor the beautiful has any absolute subjective basis. In the case of modernism, to few in the case of a modernism, the new becomes the good and contain the seeds of its own destruction as surely as a built-in obsolescence of a machinery. Conclusion. In modernist sense, an artistic word is a assist and praised for its aesthetic characteristic for a modernist artist, especially a high one, being a conformit has an neither meaning or meaning nor value. After all the previous literary movements and school, modernism came to the realize that art itself need a lot of care and attention. A high modernist Joyce put a step further and paved the way for art to be at the center of literary focus. These are my work citation. If any, thank you. If any question, you can ask me.
Upasana, how did the function of art change during the modernist era?
The function of art changed the modernist era so many ways. The function of art is the the modernist art beautified the nature and beautified the sculpture and nature. He was not modernist art not focused on a religious and etc. But he was a focus in the contemporary time, and we see the who was see and the
Upasana. According to you, in what ways has modernism transformed or changed the perspectives on arts and literature?
Yeah, in my point of view, modernism transferred perspective on art and literature. Modernism transferred the thing human seeing a society and transfer the so many modern idea modern idea and focus on a technology and modern art and not focus on only a religious based. So modern is transfer the perspective on art and literature.
Okay, so fine. So it was the last day of presentation. A few suggestions which are made, which you have to remember, take note that next time we have to see that those things are not repeated. From your title to citations, everything that you have to keep in mind. So today also, so far as citations are concerned, still there are similar mistakes being committed. So try to see that you practice it on a regular basis. You have enough time if you think of the summer vacation, and after that, when the term begins. During those time, if you keep in mind that these are the things that I will learn, so that in the presentations I can make it better, then it will be okay. Otherwise, if you just awaken when the presentations begin, or when they are announced, or overnight only, then those mistakes will not be rectified, and we'll have to keep on repeating the same things again and again. In the last one, you were talking about the topic was very interesting, but content was not found so equal. This function of art in modernism. So that article that you referred, though not cited properly, you cited research date, which we have told again and again that you have to go to the original publication, not to research gate and this. So that, and it is very clearly given also. You open and you find in which journal it is published. So it is not something that is difficult to do. But they talk about two functions, personal and social. And there they try to look at those things. But if you, we had a very interesting article in yesterday, I think. in one of the either morning or afternoon session, where this article was there. Indian Aesthetics, Its Techniques and Assumptions by Troy Organ. And this article also looks at the Indian aesthetics or Indian poetics and the role of art or function of art. And it tries to say that in Indian context, art as calm. Calm means desire, pleasure, enjoyment. Art has that function. Then art as lila, art as maya, art as yog, art as anubhav, praman, and sadhana. In this way, around 7 functions of art are given there. So, with that angle, when you try to look at into only the category of modernism, so this is more about cosmic way of looking at art. But modernism is a phase that came in 20th century. So there, what is the role of art? That is expected to be seen in that context also. Most of the others were quite well done. So, Insia on Surrealism, you might have cited this art and culture site which earlier was referred. So, such a good resource when you come across, every time you should develop a habit to just go and peep in to see that what might be there, something interesting you may find there. So, that way, if this resource eager first to look there. Let me try to see there and what are the things. And you can find interesting things. Mansi on Absurdism was there. Then Nirali. Content on the slides were good, but you are not able to answer the questions properly. So some of the examples should be handy when you talk about concepts in the work of art, how those things are coming. Payal on Victorianism and Modernism, that also was good from S.C. Ward's key aspects were considered in this. Pooja also did well with non-linear narrative in absurd theatre. Normally narratives are for novels. Here there are plot structure. So, but people do use, but we should be aware, like I am aware that narrative techniques are for novels. But I am trying to apply that in plot. Like many times, plot structures are applied in novel also. People do study plot of a novel. But plot basically is for drama. And plot is the soul of drama. That is what Aristotle had said in Poetics. So this is what we refer. Okay? Plot is the soul. Okay, સરસ idea. તમારો છે કે ના મારો નથી Aristotle નો છે. એને poetics માં વાત કરી છે એમ. એ કહેવું પડે નહીતર એમ જાય કે મેં કહ્યું છે. That's why these all things are important in academic discussions. When we do, we keep on referring to the people from where we got those ideas. So narrative that can be made clear, but it was good. Rajeshvariba on birthday party, various interpretations were given. Rinkal also presented well with India in the Western literature. Siddharth was the central text. Riddhi on Harold Pinter and this Harold, that is the word. Harold and Vladimir, not Vladimir. Vladimir is the word. Trushali also did well with fantasy literature. And the example of Brahmastra was also quite appropriate. Last one was Upasana. So it was fine. So with this, we end our this entire season of presentation for you. Afternoon, we will have next time also. Okay, let me end this.